I call this meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Can we do a roll call, please?
Director Burnworth?
Here.
Director Goodchill?
Here.
Director Bedard? Director Proctor? Director Berker?
Here.
Director Van Ness?
Here.
Director Garcia?
Here.
Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll move on to consideration for approval of the agenda. In case of emergency, items may be added to the agenda by a majority vote of the Board of Directors. Emergency is defined as a work stoppage, a crippling disaster, or other activity that severely imperils public health, safety, or both. Items on the agenda may be taken out of sequential order as their priority is determined by the Board of Directors. The Board may take action on any item appearing on the agenda. I have a motion for the consent agenda.
I motions.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Berker and a second by Garcia. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We'll move
We
on.
actually just approved the agenda, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, the agenda. Item 6, public comments. At this time, the board will hear comments on any agenda item. If any person wishes to be heard, they shall stand, address the president, identify themselves, and state the subject for the comment. Time limit for each speaker is 3 minutes. If the speaker wishes to speak on multiple items, the speaker will get 4 minutes total across all items. Do we have anybody here for public comment tonight? Seeing none. Now moving on to the consent calendar. Any member of the board, staff, or public may request that items for the consent calendar be removed for discussion. Items so removed shall be acted upon separately, immediately following the approval of the items on the remaining items on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Valdez and a second by Garcia. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm actually abstaining, and I'm doing so because I didn't get copies of the minutes until like 4 o'clock this afternoon. So I'd appreciate it in the future if I could actually get them in time to read them before I have to approve them. So, thank you.
We can move on to item 8, board member comments. We move to item A, brief reports by directors on meetings and events attended. Do you have any board members that attended anything they want to give an update on?
Well, I attended something last Thursday. Thank you for Pablo with the El Centro Regional Medical Center inviting us to the, I guess, I don't know if it was a grand opening, but their new building here at El Centro Regional Medical Center. It's a very nice cafeteria, very nice building, and a very nice addition, well done. So a very nice event too, by the way, put on by your foundation.
Yes, and I knew about it. It was very nice, and if I understand correctly, Starbucks is moving in.
It's open to the public, by the way, too.
Yes, yes it is. So you were speaking my language with that one, so good job.
Next, if we don't, we'll move to the report by the Education and Outreach Ad Hoc Committee.
Yeah, we met last Friday, came up with some nice proposals, some nice ideas. We're still developing, things are still in development. We have had, so we're still working on that. We have some logo options that we'll be reviewing tomorrow as a committee as well, and discussing that also moving forward. But there's a lot on the horizon, but it's still maturing.
And there was a nice article that was put out.
A nice article put out by our new hire, Frank Salazar. Sorry, Frank, for watching this. Really well done, and it's actually real nice working with Frank. He's a real professional, so looking forward to some good things.
Now we'll move on to report by AB 918 negotiation committee.
I can take that report. I met with the AB 918 negotiation ad hoc committee this past Tuesday. We discussed some of the conversations I've been having with counsel for ECRMC relating to the planned acquisition of ECRMC. So I had sent over proposed revisions to the joint powers agreement to the or ideas about the joint powers agreement between El Centro, ECRMC, and UCSD. And what I informed the negotiation committee is our plan to create a joint powers agreement between IVHD and UCSD for the IVHD board's consideration. I hope that we can bring the proposed joint powers agreement to this board hopefully at the October regular board meeting. It's quite an undertaking, but since we have somewhat of a model to work off of, because we already have the current, ECRMC has the current joint powers agreement. This joint powers agreement would be a sort of, it's sometimes called a springing agreement, which contemplates 2 trigger events. So it would be a joint powers agreement between Imperial Valley Healthcare District and UCSD for hospital management services, but obviously we don't have a hospital yet. So the trigger events for what would make the provisions of the agreement effective would be either the acquisition of ECRMC, and so there will be some trigger event there, either the signing of the contract or the transfer of, the recordation of the grant deed, for example, transferring the hospital from ECRMC to IVHD. We'll brainstorm that, but there's going to be some trigger event on the ECRMC side, which once that trigger event happens, it puts into place the management agreement with UCSD to manage and continue managing and operating the hospital like they've currently been doing. The other trigger event would be the dissolution of Pioneers, and so that once Pioneers is dissolved, then UCSD's management services could spring into place and be managing and overseeing the operations of Pioneers with no disruption to the healthcare services. It's kind of like a forward-looking, proactive agreement that would be sitting there waiting for these trigger events to happen, but it's already executed by and between the parties and would contemplate whatever happens first, but there is a plan in place for UCSD to manage either or both facilities, with the ultimate idea of once both facilities come under IVHD's umbrella, which is what's contemplated by AB 918, then UCSD would manage and oversee operations of the hospital the way it currently does for ECRMC for both campuses. And then it's a kind of way of centralizing and consolidating the management of the hospitals. So we sort of brainstormed that, started talking about what that would look like. I discussed it with the AB 918 ad hoc negotiation committee, and the negotiation committee thinks it's a good idea. So we're bringing it back to this board for discussion, because if it sounds like a potential, if it sounds like a good plan, obviously, this doesn't bind you to anything because you have to see the language of the joint powers agreement to bring back for consideration by this board. But I just didn't want to bring something back to the October meeting that you're not, out of the blue, that you wouldn't be prepared for. So that's the recommendation of the ad hoc negotiation committee, and I'm happy to entertain any questions or suggestions, either now or between now and the October meeting by board directors directly, so that we can make sure and incorporate whatever your ideas are or answer whatever your questions are before we bring the joint powers agreement to the board for consideration at the next meeting. But that's kind of the plan. We thought it was a good idea to sort of look forward and have this thing in place that would dictate how things will operate once one of these two sort of trigger events happen. So if that's, unless there are any questions, we can move on to the next item, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The joint powers agreement, I mean, I'm talking about services staying here in the valley. Are there going to be terms on that or with their management or? how-
About services staying
Like taking services out of the valley that can be provided?
provided here. That doesn't currently exist in the joint powers agreement between ECRMC and UCSD.
Mhm.
I can ask. I don't know how. It's my understanding that those decisions are made, I think, on a case-by-case basis, and
Well, no, I'm just talking about if they're taking over the management of both hospitals, I don't want any services shuttered
right.
or removed from the valley. In fact, I would actually like them to bring services to the
Right.
valley.
And I think that's, in all of my discussions with UCSD, that's the plan, is to
But they
not.
haven't done that.
So
Well,
I
no,
think
the plan looking forward.
one of the things the negotiations committee's been really firm on is talking about a strategic plan that is made by this board that they're held accountable to.
Okay. I just want to make sure
Sure.
that they are aware of that.
Yes.
Because I have to be the first one to yell out. So I just don't want this valley shuttered by UCSD.
Yes, of course. Yeah, so we can discuss, and that's a good note for our negotiation committee, because I won't bring any joint powers agreement for discussion or potential approval to this board that hasn't been vetted first by the negotiation committee. It's one of the purposes of the negotiation committee. So we'll talk, and if there are additional questions or some stuff that hasn't been included in there, we'll get them in there and then negotiate it with you.
Yeah, and I definitely would like a lot of the, the first few, whatever, how long this joint powers agreement is going to be, but definitely for approval by a lot of the management decisions. Because they're going to be managing, but I definitely would like that to be run by the board before they
Sure.
decide to do something.
Yeah, the kind of vision of the joint powers agreement that I'm contemplating sees this board stepping into the shoes of the board of ECRMC to make all of the same decisions, the important budgetary decisions, and all the decisions obviously required by law for a healthcare district. So, I don't have the specifics yet because we haven't drafted it yet, but that is what we hope to draft over the next couple weeks and discuss. And then it is ambitious to try to get it finalized before October, but that's our goal. And so hopefully we come back with it, but if we've got to negotiate, obviously I wouldn't bring back an agreement if it wasn't tentatively approved on the UCSD side too. So that just may take time.
And I would definitely like to approve, look at it 4 minutes before the meeting.
Oh, yeah, certainly,
Like to
it
have a
would be
copy of it,
circulated.
so
Yeah, the goal would be to have that circulated for, the regular board meeting by no later than the Friday before, to give folks time to
good. What are
digest it.
questions and things?
Yes.
All right.
Do you have any other questions? No? All right, then move on to item D, report regarding travel to Sacramento. So myself and Director Garcia and Director Proctor went to Sacramento a couple weeks ago. We met with everybody on the legislative committee that was on the local government committee. That way, obviously we could talk to them about anything and everything about Imperial Valley Healthcare District and ask for their support of SB 1070. I testified for the Assembly Committee, and it was approved on the committee, then it went to the Assembly, and then went to the Senate floor, and is now sitting on the governor's desk where he has till September 30th to sign. So that's all I have. And then,
I want to give a little chuckle because you had an encounter with the villain of the floor, the legislative floor. They actually closed him out on the very last day. They had told him to go home, but he actually had a conversation with you.
yeah, he's not very nice.
So I had a chuckle. Good job.
I would just like to point out that we were all there as a team, but I just want to really hats off to Katie. She really spearheaded and was fearless, and hats off to you.
Oh, thank you. It was one of those, come on boys, we're doing this. Let's get here. So, I always say, I'm like, trips to Sacramento are the whole time I kept saying, trips to Sacramento are a lot easier with the lobbyist. So, but when you are your lobbyist, so, but yeah. Nonetheless, results are the same, so. With that, we'll move on to item 9, introduction to Berkeley Research Group Financial Strategies.
Yeah, so in our audience today, we have 2 of the members of our BRG Financial Strategist team that the board retained at the last regular board meeting. So they came to introduce themselves and start looking at facilities and meeting folks here in Imperial Valley. So we have James McKenna and Haywood Miller from the BRG team. So I'll invite them to come to the podium, and maybe you can tell us just a little bit about BRG. We already know some about BRG, but about your kind of vision for the work you're going to do, and maybe a tiny bit about the work you've done this week so far.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Haywood Miller. I'm a managing director of BRG. It's Berkeley Research Group. It's headquartered in Berkeley, California, but it's a large, much larger consulting firm than just in California. I'm here with James McKenna. He's my associate, and also not here is Peter Chadwick, who is my partner. We have offices right next to each other in DC, and but we never see each other ever. We're always on the road, so it's just the life we live. I think Peter and I, suffice it to say, spend almost all of our time in healthcare and have for many, many years. But I don't think you need to get the detail of our lives and resumes. You can get that off the BRG website. I don't think we need to waste time for that. But I think I would like to introduce BRG to you because it's just another acronym that you all, no one's heard of, to be honest. And, we are 1,500 consultants, and really around the world, but mostly in the U.S. We're in lots of different industries, but primarily healthcare. Healthcare, we probably have 650 consultants. We are lawyers, we are former administrators, we are doctors, nurses, PharmDs, you name it, everything to do with healthcare. We work with hospitals all over the country. We have a large performance improvement group. We also have a large compliance and regulatory group. We're asked by private equity all over the country what's going to happen in Washington and when and what kind of impact will that have on our revenue going forward when they're doing acquisitions. So folks who've worked on Ways and Means, folks who've worked at CMS, folks who've worked at MacPac. So we really do have we're really truly only a phone call away from just about anything you want to learn about healthcare, which is very nice. So we're thrilled to be involved in this project in particular. I'll get to that after I tell you a little bit about what we've been doing here. We think it's always critical to meet people face to face when you're going to work with folks and they're going to hear from you. Zoom doesn't quite cut it, but the good news is to save money, you can meet someone once, and then the Zoom is certainly sufficient. But while we've been here, James and I have done a lot of driving around. We spent a lot of quality time with Pablo and his management team over at ECRMC. We had a great experience with there. They walked us through the hospital. The new hospital is spectacular. I mean, the kitchen alone is first class.
Wait till Starbucks.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the Starbucks. Yeah, I want to see that. I didn't see that.
Do you have a chef?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, good.
but you don't see that in rural hospital systems around the country. You really don't. You see a lot of hospitals that are very, very shabby, and it's really hard to kind of dig out of that kind of situation. We went up to Pioneers, and we just walked around. We did not talk to the management team there. I think you're all aware of that. So, but it's important for us to see facilities, just to put context to the data that we get from in the process. We got a big data dump, so now that we've signed the engagement letter. And so James is sitting there with, he's going through it, sitting in the car, going through to see what we have. What we've seen so far, and we literally just got it this morning, is that the information we have is very, very professional. Sometimes we don't see that. Sometimes we just get a mess, and it's very hard to work with. What we've seen so far is very professional, which makes it a much easier, leaner process going forward. So we're thrilled about that. We went down to Calexico, we were in Brawley, we were in El Centro, we walked in some of the outpatient clinics, we even walked in some of your competitors. We walked into Intercare facility because it was spanking brand new down in Calexico. I mean, it's quite a competitor. We've worked on a lot of F2HCs in our careers, and we've seen some that are that size and bigger, but those are well, that's for another day. But in any event, what we're really excited about here is what we're seeing all over the country, is that rural districts in particular are struggling with the quality of care in their regions. And oftentimes we see some strong providers and some weak providers. Sometimes we see very inefficient provision of healthcare services. And in various states around the country, James is working in New York with a hospital that's in the process of bringing together some regional participants, so with some kind of last-minute government funding, because the governments are trying to get out of the business of running these hospitals. They want them to be financed independently, and these healthcare districts are just a wonderful way to allow the region to raise funds to make the provision of healthcare services as efficient as possible and be self-sustaining over time. And that is really what people around the country are really trying to do. Some parts of the country, hospitals just go out of business and they shudder because they just can't afford it. And the richer states, they end up getting funded, but the states are very, very tired of doing that. And so this is an exciting opportunity to really become a model, not only in California, but all over the country, to do something very progressive and I wouldn't say quite new, but new-ish to improve the quality of care in the region. So anyway, that's a long-winded description. If anybody has any questions for me or James, let me know.
Any questions from the board?
Well, I spoke with them earlier. So.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Item 10, update discussion and possible action regarding health-related outstanding items. Item A is a status update and possible direction to staff regarding urgent care facilities.
Yep. Let me share my screen real quick. So, real quick, we're about to have an inspection tomorrow. We're hoping to have the final inspection for the north building to be done earlier this week. That's to get an occupancy permit. Due to some delays and some staff being away during the summer, we got pushed back, and we're going to have that tomorrow morning, well, tomorrow throughout the day. And I wanted to quickly show you this is what the original, this is the building here that you see on your screen up here. A little bit larger. There's two buildings, a north-facing building and a south-facing building. And originally it was going to be classrooms for IVC and a resource center for the community.
The Zoom is only showing a folder.
Oh,
I see it on my screen.
You do? I do. Okay.
I see what's on the big screen.
No, yeah, on the big screen, it's totally there. I'm just also on the Zoom for the folks online, and for some reason,
let me stop sharing and sharing it. That is supposed to be. Let's see, share screen.
And then we-
Okay, let's see if it will work now. Can you see it?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
There it is. So the building will be shelled out, then COVID comes around and everything changed. And the board took a shift in direction and decided to make an urgent care. And the urgent care changed from just being pretty much shells for both buildings, for classrooms and a community resource center, to being a more elaborate urgent care center. So as of today, we put together a small presentation. Mr. Does not here, but we have that ready for you. And we're also going to share the screen with that one. So we'll give it 1 second to load it. So this is of this morning, or yesterday morning. I guess. Okay. That was the original draft of the urgent care, and here's as of today, under today. So the building on the left is the north side facing building, and what you see the tan color is the south facing building. And it's 2 independent buildings. And the north side is completely ready, and we've addressed all the issues that were brought up by the building code enforcement people to Lexico. And so hopefully after tomorrow we'll get an occupancy permit. That'll probably happen sometime next week. The south facing building is the only thing that's pending on that building. You're gonna see right now is that tan building. As you can see, you guys have dead trees on here, but they assured us that once we're done, they're gonna replace the dead bushes and trees and replace them. Is the CT scan room, and it has to do with the lead that they need for the CT room. Those have been in order. They've been in order over almost close to 2 months, but it does take about 4 to 5 months to get those in. Once those doors and those jams come in, they'll be able to complete that building. So as you can tell, the inside is pretty much complete, with the exception of the CT room doors and jams on the south building. We were assured by the inspectors as well that once those come in, they're installed, that they'll be able to come and do the final inspection for the occupancy on the south building. And those are the final pictures of that's the courtyard. We were asked to put a shade in the building because it is hot in the valley, and that was an addition that had to be done at the last minute for the building inspection. You can see that there. It's already in place, and everything else. And that's the area right there that where the CT scan room is going to come in, and you're going to see also the 2 doors that and the jams that have to get replaced here shortly. They're there. Each of those doors is in excess of $10,000, and the glass is about $7,000, and that's to protect the people inside. And that's it. If you have any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Thank you.
All right, and we'll move to discussion and possible action regarding First Amendment to addendum to lease between Imperial Memorial Healthcare District and Texas Medical East and California Corporation, DBA, All Valley Urgent Care, dated January 4, 2004.
I'll take this item. This is just to inform the board that there is a First Amendment to the addendum to the lease between Heffernan and Tyson Medical that was dated January 4th, 2024, and not signed. But we have the minutes from the Heffernan December board meetings where this First Amendment was approved by the Heffernan board. And I think, Tomas can weigh in too if he'd like, but I think it's just fell by the wayside and wasn't signed for some, it just kind of didn't get executed. So as the legal successor in interest to Heffernan, we absorb and inherit all the obligations and rights under the lease. So it would be appropriate for the IVHD board chair to sign the First Amendment in order to honor the approval that the Heffernan board gave at that December board meeting, but we didn't want to do that without bringing it to this board first. And I'm happy to answer any questions about it. It's a pretty straightforward amendment which agrees to abate rent for the first 5 full calendar months of the term of the lease. That's really all it does. It's kind of a one-pager. And, again, this was already agreed to by the Heffernan board, it just didn't get signed. So the IVHD board chair, as the successor, could sign it, but again, we don't want to do anything without bringing it to this board first for discussion or approval. My recommendation would be, a discussion regarding authorization or direction to the board chair to sign it on behalf of IVHD as a successor to Heffernan, because I do think I do think it was, the minutes established it was approved.
Legal repercussions if we don't sign it?
That's something we can talk about in closed session if you'd like. Maybe. I think that there are provisions, there's probably an argument that it should have gotten signed and it was authorized and approved in a public meeting, and it's just a matter of a signature. But I'm also happy to bring this back for discussion in a closed session to discuss all options, if that's what the board would like to do. There's also, I understand, I'm not sure if Dr. Tyson is, oh good. There's also, from what I understand, the option to discuss potential additional amendments to the lease. So if we are in a position, or if the lessor, which is Tyson Medical Inc., wants to discuss potential alternative amendments or, open up discussions for amendment of the lease, that is also something we can do. You can direct us to do. I also had a conversation with ECRMC about the potential use of that space with potentially ECRMC ED doctors or urgent care doctors if we wanted to explore additional services in that building. So there's a lot of options and opportunity. It's just a matter of what direction, policy direction the board wants to take with respect to the building, and what our lessor, is interested in also. Because if the lessor is interested in discussing potential other lease amendments or equipment or et cetera, it may be worth having that conversation.
Yeah, because it sounds like the ultimate intent of what was put out, in the RFP was like a partnership, which obviously IVHD would step into the shoes of, because the doctor can't self-refer to the CT scanner and self-refer to the pharmacy. It's not a pharmacist. But what we got papered was the landlord lease. So the intent was one thing, but what we got handed was another. So it's if it's going to be a partnership, it needs to get papered,
Right.
But what we got papered is lease, and that's it, So for urgent care under fair market value, I think it's, not a good deal for IVHD.
So if it's the board's decision or inclination, you can direct Tomas or myself or both of us to pursue discussions with Tyson Medical Inc. regarding potential additional amendments to this lease that we can bring back as options for this board. And you can also appoint a board member to be the kind of spearhead of that if you'd like. And then I'm not sure if the lessor has any public comment you'd like to give about it. Sure.
Yeah, if you would mind.
It's hard because you can't discuss, I mean, feel free to please step up to the podium. The reason it's, you know, it's in a public meeting is because you can't talk to a quorum of board members outside of a public meeting, because it would violate the Brown Act. So that's why this is the forum to kind of address the full board.
No, I thank you for the opportunity. For those who don't know, Dr. Brian Tyson. I've been a healthcare provider for almost 20 years now. It's been 19. During my time, I've spent time in the ER, hospital medicine. I've been medical director for Trojan Healthcare, for Epic Management, for Beaver Medical Group, for Primary Critical Care Partners, and then ventured into my own realm of urgent care after that. So I have a wide range of background. And, you know, my whole life in medicine has been in underserved communities. My residency was at San Bernardino County Hospital at Colton, you know, St. Bernardine's in the middle of San Bernardino, Community Hospital San Bernardino, San Antonio, Redlands Community Hospital, Desert Regional down here. So I've done a lot of things in my life. One of the things that I've always known is partnering with health districts or partnering with people who have the same vision is where the benefit is. As opposed to trying to be independent. You know, we can be independent, and I certainly can be independent. I'm already independent. You know, it wasn't All Valley Urgent Care reaching out to the Heffernan Board. It was the Heffernan Board reaching out to All Valley Urgent Care because of the level of service we provide. It's top notch. It's the best you're going to get when it comes to an urgent care setting. I'm completely open to discussions. I would love to have a subcommittee. I think, you know, with Katie, we've asked about that. We've shared some ideas. And I think it is appropriate for that facility. Because it is a larger facility. It's in an extremely underserved area right now. There's a lot of services that are really lacking in the emergency, urgency, OB world of Calexico. That I think if we put our heads together, I think we can come out with a great solution. We had those discussions with the Heffernan Board. Tomas, Mian, with Paloma. I mean, we've had many discussions. And we went from a classroom to what we see now. But like Katie mentioned, I'm not a radiologist. I'm not a pharmacist. I don't plan on being one. I don't want to be one. So there's space for partnership. There's space for observation. There's space for OB care if we want to do so. But again, I'm not an OB doctor, although I do have OB emergency care, but not the standard OB, you know, well checks and things like that I think is lacking. And I think we saw that when we distributed services from El Centro Regional up to Pioneers for OB care, right? So now you're really, that's a long track from Calexico to Pioneers to get checked for something that maybe we can do in Calexico. Just thoughts. These are all thoughts. I'm willing to go the direction that the board wants to go, as long as it's realistic and not financially detrimental to me. You know what I mean? Because again, the district came to me for help. It's not the other way around. If I wanted to start an urgent care in Calexico, I would have bought a building, we'd be open, and we'd be running right now. And that's the reality. We did it in Brawley, we did it in Cal Mesa, we did it in Imperial Beach, we did it in El Centro. I didn't move to Calexico because of this opportunity. We could have, but we didn't. So partnership to me is the best thing to do. I think the citizens of Calexico who pay a tax deserve it. I think that you know, when you have, I've heard at some other meetings, there's only 2 ambulances in Calexico. And so if you're running medical calls on things that aren't emergencies, then it's a waste of resources. If you have an urgent care, that's a level 1 urgent care, which is what we plan to be at some point in time, okay, then we can handle those. And if they need to go to the hospital, the fire department's right across the street, and we can send them up there. But let's not take the ambulance away from the heart attack that happens 10 minutes after the ambulance leaves to go to the call. So I'm a very realistic person. I'm a very community-oriented person. And I hope you guys, you know, we can work that out, and we can work together to figure out the best solution for that center, because ultimately it's the community we serve And I just want to make sure that everybody hears me on that.
Yeah, I think I would like to open it up, so we can negotiate a partnership. I do think, like I said, I do think that was Heffernan's vision. It just wasn't papered that way.
Right.
So, that's where we're gonna have to kind of go back and
Sure.
fix it, I mean, you've looked at the lease, it's a landlord agreement.
I
That's
agree.
it.
I agree.
You know?
I think that's honestly, it's a complete waste.
Yeah,
I think, there's more things we can do. I understand when you're dealing with a smaller district, it's a little bit easier, we can get amendments and things like that a little bit. This is a little bit bigger, a little bit more, sustainful, but, again, I'm open, if you guys are open, if we want to have those conversations, I'm a phone call away.
Was this something our ad hoc negotiations team can negotiate on?
It could fall within the scope. The ad hoc negotiation committee was formed to negotiate, to be sort of negotiators to push forward and progress the discussions relating to satisfying the goal of 89 team. And Heffernan's dissolution is part of that. I do think it falls maybe a little bit outside the scope, but you guys can talk about it right now and direct the ad hoc committee to be the negotiators for the lease, because of course the ad hoc committee doesn't have any decision-making power. It's just a committee on, limited jurisdiction and limited time items that they bring back to the board for recommendation. So I think if you want to direct the ad hoc committee to pursue negotiations with Dr. Tyson relating to the lease and the urgent care, it's within your authority to do that.
Well, it just seems like to me that would be the best place to put it, because if we're trying to have this continuity in our care across all of these platforms, the best place is to have the ad hoc committee working on this at the same time we're negotiating and working on the other things, so that we're not trying to do all of these separate things and then at the last minute bring them all together. That's just my opinion.
I do agree with that. Because there's, there's regulations like users and things like that that need to all tie in together.
So basically what we're talking about is basically kind of clarifying and restructuring our relationship together, and it sounds like, right? And then to make sure it makes sense for everybody, and then as for the district as a whole as well, so we can all work together and ultimately provide the best service for the community as well. So I think what we're talking about is doing some restructuring, kind of going back to the drawing board, so to speak, but together and work together on this.
so I think one of the things that we have in front of us right now is to sign that amendment. One of the things is they're gonna get the COO for half of it, and I think that's, the 5 months we get him in the door. Is it ideal for us? No, right? But at the same time, it's like, okay, half the building, half the rent, well, half the zero is still zero, And so while we kind of negotiate on the other side, because I think that's how the building is set up. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but.
Yeah, again, a lot of the discussions have been, it's like, do we want to be quote first, do we want to be landlords, right? If you want to be landlords, then what's the point of opening the north side if we're going to end up having to pay rent when the building's not completed, right? So that's like one issue. The second issue is, if we want to be a partner, how does that work with, let's get the north side open so we can at least provide some services, right? And those services would be on the minor urgent care side. Then as the second half of the building gets completed and we have now access to a CT scanner and maybe some oxygen and things like that, then we can decide, okay, now what do we want to do with that south side? Who wants to run that? How are we going to do that? Who's going to run the CT machine? Who's going to run the pharmacy? So in the lease, we can sublet to private entities, which we can do if that's what you guys choose us to do. But again, the discussions are, if the board wants to be one district, then why do we want to create another competitor? Right? I mean, I'm quote a competitor as it is. And it's not by choice, it's just by private entity. But do we really want to create another competitor in Calexico where you have Pioneers, you got ECRMC, you got Dr. Bo, and you got myself. Really? I mean, I thought, I was all for the one district. When Garcia asked me about it, I'm like, I believe in it because the one district was what we had in San Bernardino. And it works if everybody plays on the same field. But if we don't play on the same field and we create adversaries, then you're going to create problems. Because why would I be loyal to you if you're not going to be loyal to me? Right? And that's just competitive nature. I've always said, reach out to me in everything that we've done, that I've been here. If you got a problem, reach out to me. If you need something from me, reach out to me. And I don't think I've ever turned down an offer. I tried to make it work with Pioneers. Ask Larry Lewis. My first venture into the urgent care business was I tried to partner with Pioneers Memorial. It didn't work out because their CFO said it wasn't financially suitable for them, so they backed out and I was left on my own. So I'm a team player, but we got to be on the same team.
But, if I can, I think what you're saying is that you are willing to negotiate with us so that we can find a way to make this work for the benefit of
Everyone.
the community and you
Everyone.
and us and all of that.
Yeah.
So,
Again, contracting services, who's going to do what, I'm not greedy. We don't have to do everything. But we can do everything if that's the position you want me to do. I can negotiate subleases, I can negotiate other specialists, I can bring in OB, I can do those things. It's not like I don't know anybody out here. But the question is again, if you're the landlord, right, and if this was a project where the district came to me for help, why would I shut you out, right? First right of refusal is how I look at it. Here's the opportunity for you guys. It's in front of you. We can do some good things out of this facility, then let's do it. If that's not your plan, that's okay too.
And I think our plan is to make it fit into this whole thing of AB 918, right? Because you had already started this, then AB 918 comes in,
right.
and so we're trying to, for me, I want to be respectful of the Heffernan Board's vision for it. One of the things I see is, okay, well, if we're all on the same EMR, a patient goes into this urgent care, they're like, I don't know if I need to go to the ER or the urgent care. They go in, they already filled out their paperwork there, and you're like, hey, you need more care than what my urgent care can provide, then it's literally just a transfer of facilities, as opposed to, okay, no, you're getting transferred to the ER, you're gonna have to fill out paperwork again.
Yeah, here you go.
It's just a changing of facilities. That's, for me, I want to see it to be continuative like that. And urgent care, I would say, especially in the Imperial Valley, you see an urgent care is not used for its purpose. It's either used as like a walk-in clinic, and ERs kind of used the same way. They're not utilized how they should be. Then I want to use this as kind of a model to, educate everybody. Like, this is what an urgent care is for. This is what a walk-in clinic's for. This is what for the emergency room's for. And so I think if we can kind of build that model, it could be something that we could implement.
Yeah, and I think we've built that model very well in El
I think
Centro.
Tyson has accomplished that,
Yeah.
he definitely has a true following, and I do think that if we can collaborate with him, it would be a success for Calexico.
Yeah, that's really what,
Yeah, and again, I'm open, 100% open.
perfect. So,
I agree. I would make the motion to have the ad hoc committee move forward with negotiations with Dr. Tyson in order to create the best plan moving forward and to see what works best for the community, because I think ultimately, as it's been discussed, that this is what would be the best for the constituents of the healthcare district. And so I think that, creating that continuity was the essence of why AB 918 was passed. And so I think that this is just one step in the right direction to creating true continuity throughout the valley.
have a second?
I'll second. The only thing I will add to that is that with these negotiations, I wouldn't like to delay the opening of the urgent care center. We've been waiting a long time in Calexico for it, and I hope it doesn't take a long time.
So do you want to make a motion to approve the 5-month lease and that, kind of make it where he can move into the north path.
We're gonna have to,
We can make it a second, we can vote on this motion, and then
Okay.
you can make that motion to sign it.
all right.
Yeah, 'cause that's really, the first motion is more related to item 10A.
I'll second the motion on the table.
Okay.
Have a motion by Menard Jr. and a second by Garcia. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? So motion carries to negotiate.
And then relating to item 10B, which is specifically about the First Amendment, perhaps Director Valdez wants to move to approve the First Amendment to addendum to the lease between Heffernan and Tyson, even though it's already been approved, but not by this board, so that would kind of give direction to Katie to sign on behalf of this board as the successor and agency to the Heffernan board.
Okay, I would like to make the motion to,
First, I have a question.
Go
So if we sign this amendment, and he's leasing right now, right? How long is the lease for if we're gonna do different negotiations? So should we limit it?
Well, I think
This
this lease was
amendment,
already approved, and so it's just me signing
Okay.
it.
this
If that makes
amendment is
sense.
only a
Just
5-month
Okay.
rent abatement.
Okay.
It's not, it doesn't do anything to the underlying lease, which is already signed.
Okay.
It's just a one-page amendment that abates rent for the first 5 months of the calendar, for first 5 calendar months of the term.
Okay. Sorry.
So I have a
so I
motion
would
by,
like to make the motion to, IVHD to sign the First Amendment to addendum to lease between Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District and Tyson Medical Aid.
I second it.
so I have a motion by Valdez and a second by Berker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So, thank you. We look forward to,
Thank you guys,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
essentially, it's cleaning up. So, now we'll move on to item 11, 11A, board policy regarding public comment at board meetings.
Yes, per direction at the last board meeting, I drafted a pretty standard policy regarding public comments at board meetings, just to sort of quietly fill in the back of all of our board policies as they go on. This one pretty much put papers, the practice the board has been following in practice. We previously had 3 minutes public speaker, 3 minutes total across all items. This one's slightly different. It allows for 3 minutes individually, and folks who want to speak on multiple items would get 4 minutes total instead of being limited to the 3. It provides that when we can, we'll try to stream using the two-way audio-visual platform, such as Zoom, which we already do. And of course, if a board member appears remotely, pursuant to AB 2449, we have to allow members of the public to comment in real time over the two-way audio-visual device also. And then it provides that written comments, which have been pre-prepared, will be distributed to the full board, but do not have to be read. And that these procedures can be applied to committee meetings at the discretion of the committee chairperson. We don't have committees yet, but if and when we do begin creating them, this public policy regarding public comments would apply to those meetings as well. It's really just putting what we're already doing in a policy.
Do you have a motion?
I move to approve.
A second.
I have a motion by Goodsell and a second by Berker. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. We'll move on to item B, letter to the governor in support of SB 1070.
Yes, thank you. We were contacted by the staff members for the senators and Senator Padilla and Assemblyman Garcia. They're requesting this board write a letter of support, which would be delivered to the governor in support of SB 1070. So the draft letter is attached to the agenda packet. Information about SB 1070 is attached to the agenda packet, and the actual language of SB 1070 is attached to the agenda packet. So I won't go through the letter because it's been circulated. It conveys this board's, it would convey this board's support for SB 1070, encouraging the governor to sign it. This board authorized 3 of the board members to lobby in support of SB 1070 at the last board meeting, so I assume that position is consistent with this letter, but we would like the board's blessing before sending it.
I move that we approve the letter of support to go to the governor for AB 1070.
And I'll say there's a minor error on the agenda. It says 1071, but the agenda packet has the 1070, it's just a typo.
1070.
Thank you.
So I have a motion by Goodsell and a second by Valdez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Move on to item 12, update regarding the AB 918 progress.
So just to reiterate, we've been discussing with the ECRMC, the negotiations, BMG and the appraisal, we expect to have complete maybe next week. We also fortunately got documents delivered to us from PMH responsive to our data request and our Public Records Act request. Those documents were uploaded on September 4th. So we will deliver those documents to Hoffman Hall so that they can incorporate them into an updated study. And we'll discuss that further with the AB 918 negotiation committee once we've had an opportunity to review the documents. But that's my update on AB 918.
Perfect. Any questions? We'll move on to item 13, general counsel update.
I don't have a general counsel update for today.
Perfect. And with that, at 6:58, we'll move into closed session.
And I just want to recommend to the board that we move into closed session on the conference with legal counsel, existing litigation on the regular board meeting agenda, as well as the two closed sessions that are noticed under the special meeting agenda, consolidated agendas, which are a closed session for public employee appointment. So if we could take both of the special board meeting closed session and the regular board meeting closed session concurrently, just for the public's information.
We'll come back and report out.
Okay, yep, we'll come back and report out.
And we will consider ourselves back in regular session. Director Burnworth had a family event to attend, so I am taking over as vice president. So with that, I will turn it over to our legal counsel to report out of our closed session.
Thank you. With respect to special board meeting agenda item 4A, public employee appointment, government code section 54957B1, titled general counsel, we do have a report. There was a motion made by Director Medart, a second by Director Garcia, to transition legal services from Procopio to Snell and Wilmer, effective September 23rd, with authorization to the board chair to execute an agreement with Snell and Wilmer for general counsel services. I'm moving law firms. I'm still here. I'm just moving from law firm A to law firm B, and and the board has discussed and decided to continue with my representation. So I will still be here, but my firm will change. Thank you. Yeah, the motion was unanimous by the members present. With respect to item 2, consultant position operations, there's no reportable action. And with respect to regular board meeting agenda, closed session item on existing litigation, there's no reportable action.
Thank you. With that, do we have any items for our future agenda? We will be having the JPA springing agreement coming back, correct?
Hopefully, if we can get it negotiated with UCSC, yes.
Okay. And then we'll have some reports on the negotiations with the ad hoc committee with respect to the Tyson facility, correct?
Correct, with respect to the Tyson facility and the potential consultant position.
And
Yes.
And
Yes, ma'am.
the
The PR,
PR and
yeah.
education
Public outreach,
will have
some feedback, yeah, some
Feedback
reporting.
and-
Reporting.
Yeah, we'll
Reportable
continue to
items.
have both ad hoc committees reporting back any activity until they wind down, because they're limited jurisdiction committees.
Anything else?
I have nothing.
No? If not, then I consider this meeting adjourned at 7:54.
Thank you.
Great job, Maureen.